Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn. And of course, we couldn't do it without the master of ceremonies, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of the Spine Buster, the master, in fact. Here he is, AA, Arne Anderson. Arne, how are you, man?
I'm excellent. How are you? And we have firmly established who does the best spine buster, haven't we?
I think we have. WWE be damned. I think we know that that's AA Arne Anderson. No arguments from the internet. The internet's always right, as we know. And we're hoping that you guys are right today. We should mention right here, Arne, this weekend, you guys have a little AEW pay-per-view action going down. Revolution. You excited, nervous, anxious? What are you thinking?
No, very excited. It's a little over a year, a couple of months old, the company, and it's, man, everybody is on board, and some of the angles that are coming together and matching up your best against your best, a lot of good things going on, and I cannot wait to get to the pay-per-view because Tony Khan and the company and everyone involved, all the talent, production, you name it, they really pulled together by having only 4 pay-per-views a year?
Yeah.
As it is. That's what I've always talked about. You can really concentrate and give your audience something special when you only have 4. And that's what's coming. That's what's in store for the audience. And I can't wait.
I can't either, man. It's going to be a good time. I can't believe that there's actually an exploding barbed wire match on pay-per-view in America. I'm not going to miss it. I'm fired up about it. And I hope everybody checks out what Arne is up to and say hello to our old pals, JR and Tony. And let's jump into it, man. It's hashtag Ask Arn Anything. We got tons of questions. There's no chance that we'll get to them all. This has become a really, really popular segment here on the show. Every other week we do it. So if you didn't get let me start that again. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question this week, you can ask it in 2 weeks. Just go follow us at the Arn Show and be sure to use hashtag Ask Arn Anything. Let's jump into it. Jerry Eugene Hill says, Ole wrote about the psychology that promoters used in making payoffs. In essence, the same dollar payoff can be viewed either positively or negatively, depending on its presentation. If Jimmy Crockett, instead of offering Arn $25,000 for the Bunkhouse Stampede pay-per-view and paying him half, had instead promised Arn $10,000 and then presented him with an extra $2,500 for doing such a great job, would Arn have stayed with Jim Crockett, or would contractual issues have still caused Arn to leave for the WWF?
Very receptive. I'd still be there.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for 25. He offered it.
Right.
If I would have got $10,000, like he said, and the $2,500 bonus, I would have been thrilled. I would have went, damn, pretty good payoff for 1 day's work. And That's the way I looked at things back in those days. Very receptive. Yes, sir. I'd have still been there.
Let's do another question here. This one comes to us from Billy Calloway. Do you think you'll ever have an AEW match against Tully? Of course, this is coming up because Tully recently decided he was going to throw his hat in the ring with FTR. You think we'll ever see one last match with Arn Anderson in there?
Number one, when that match is over, ask Tully how that worked out for him. I don't know how he got conned into that. And no, you will never see me in another match. I don't want to embarrass myself, the audience, or anyone else on the planet that might tune in to see that. I am really, really retired.
U.S. expat fan Tokyo says, greetings from Tokyo. There are many gaijin/foreigners who became stars in Japan who did not have the same success in the mainstream United States promotions back home and vice versa. Williams, Gordy, Hansen, etc. From your experience in Japan, why do you think that's the case?
Well, the Japanese love the big bruisers and that style, that strong style that they work. You know, some of our guys that were monsters, you know, that's the way they worked over here.
Right.
So it was a natural fit. I mean, you know, you look at Bruiser Brody, you look at Stan Hansen, you know, Doc, you know, Gordy, all those guys, the Steiners, they're not getting bumped around over there. They're doing the bumping. And that draws money in Japan. You know, the bigger the guy, the Scott Nortons, the bigger monster, the more they like it. You know, Lance Archer went over after, you know, having a stalled career, I would just say, for a moment. He had a tryout with WWE that didn't work out, and he went to Japan and made a name for himself. And, you know, the guy's a big deal on AEW, and he just gets better all the time. And his work, you know, really came together working in Japan. And I think it's a place for guys to go and get their legs up under them and develop a style and then come back to the States. And they usually have a little more panache, prestige, and pretty much just an all-around better commodity.
Here's one that we got a lot. Tristan wants to know, does Arn know that Big E set up an online dating profile with his picture? And how much heat is that going to get Double A at home? Well, I'm pretty sure that Erin's not on any dating apps, so she didn't see it. But recently, Big E revealed that he famously used your picture, ironing a shirt, I believe, as a dating profile and had a little fun with it. But he doesn't think he ever even told you. Have you heard about this story?
Absolutely not. So I'm ironing a shirt.
I think you were shirtless backstage, ironing one of your own shirts. He snapped a picture of you like a spy shot and set up a dating profile as you and never told you about it until just now.
Well, number one, I'm certain it went viral, which means Big E now is responsible for making all those ladies just miserable because they got turned down, obviously, because I am married for 30 some years, 38, I believe.
I was supposed to say it's close to 40 now.
Happily married for 38 years. So what Big E did was throw me out as bait and no cigar. But I've not heard of that.
I would love to see the messages he got, though. Don't you?
Was he pretending for a moment that was who was at the end of the rainbow?
Yeah, I think it's referred to in that world as catfishing. So instead of using his own photo and communicating with people as Big E, he was communicating as Marty Lundy.
Gotcha. And obviously them thinking that the voice and the picture was all in the same person.
I really hope that he was getting some messages from some ladies and they would be like, well, how are you doing? And he'd be like, well, I don't mean to brag, but toot my own horn, but toot, toot. I mean, I hope he used all your old lines.
Is it that gimmick infringement?
Well, it probably is, but see, here's the thing. He's not using it on the masses. He's using it on ladies individually. And,
Don't.
Okay. Let's just move on. Jared wants to know, finally listening to Ask Arn 35. It's easy to find hats in 7 5/8. I have a collection of over 200 hats. I'd recommend that he shop at the Hat Club. So apparently lots of people out there have big heads, big old watermelon heads like me and you, and they're telling you there's hope.
Sweet. Wasn't aware of it. The Hat Club it is.
This is from Alan. Hi from Ireland. Did Arn ever wrestle Joe LeDuc? Does he have any stories about him? He seemed like a legit strong dude.
He was, and he was like, when I first went to Pensacola for 3 weeks, which I told that story, before I went to work for Bill Watts for 5 months. Joe LeDuc happened to be in the territory. We were both heels, so we didn't work together, but he was working the territory back then. They were using him in a good position. He was working with Bob Armstrong, and, you know, he had a big rugged look about him, and I guess he was a legitimate tough guy.
Mike Rubin wants to know, is it true that Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan had a contentious relationship in WCW when he first arrived?
Piper thought he was the biggest star in the locker room, and he probably was a lot of the time. I know he got over strong. Roddy Piper was a very influential guy in the business for a long time, and obviously that would be a guy that Hogan would benefit from knocking off, and I'm sure that discussion went down many times. It just apparently never occurred.
Marty Sabin wants to know, if Arn could hit anyone, real or fictitious, with a spine buster, who would it be? And why is it Mayor Mccheese?
Why is it Mayor Mccheese?
It's a McDonald's reference. So I know you don't have heat with McDonald's, and you probably wouldn't want a spine buster any mayors, whether they're from Knox County or not. But real or fictitious, if you owed anybody out there a spine buster, who would it be?
Probably whichever father or lack of father thereof that I had or didn't have growing up and left me with this hairdo in my gene pool. Probably not only would I like to spine buster him, but so would both of my boys.
Is your other boy getting the old flesh yarmulke?
Hair challenged.
Okay, hair follically challenged.
That's it.
Yeah.
That one, yes.
Michael McClanahan says, we know that Jim Herd loved gimmicks and sponsorships. What would Arn have done if Jim had renamed him Cheeseburger Charles and renamed the spine buster the Whopper Dropper?
Went back to cutting meat.
I thought for sure you were going to hit me with the old, what does that pay? But yeah, cutting meat's a good answer too.
Yes. And it's absolutely true.
Roger says, hope it's not too late or early for Ask Arn, but here goes. Arn, did you or anyone you know ever turn down participating in an angle due to personal beliefs? Sort of a deep cut, but I guess you used to work for a company where the owner of the company once was in a tag team match against God. So it's probably a fair question.
I don't think I ever remember anybody putting religious beliefs in front of an angle. That's the question.
Well, I think it's just any beliefs, but I sort of read it to mean religious beliefs.
That's kind of the way I do. I mean, I'm sure it happened. Nothing comes to mind. And hey, we're entertaining. It's
Right.
wrestling business. I think God would understand if you're trying to feed your family, as long as it wasn't something that was so distasteful and so, just evil. As long as it was done in the vein of entertainment.
Here's another one. And this is one that we've sort of danced around before. We talked about you as Mr. Olympia, but here's a specific question about that run. Ryan says, I recently saw a match where you threw fire at Mr. Olympia in Continental. How difficult and dangerous is it to throw fire? Can you actually injure someone if a mistake is made?
Yeah, you can. And I think the way it was explained to me and shown to me, and this was all done in about a 20-minute backstage, you just toss it in the direction. You don't try to toss it at the person, obviously, because it is flash paper and it will burn you. if it hits you flush. So just the idea that you somehow magically came up with a fireball and threw it at somebody, the heat is in the intent. And it's not meant to hit anybody in the face or the chest. If it does, it's going to get burnt.
I saw Jerry Lawler. I think it was Lawler, or maybe it was Jim Cornette. Somebody once explained that you don't really throw fire, you present fire. Was that the way you would describe it?
Well said. For it to suddenly appear in your hands and in a fireball and just go in the direction within 3 or 4 feet of somebody still is a shocking situation. How did they do that? And, God, he just threw fire.
Yeah. Throwing fire is not something that just happens through the normal course of life.
It's a little more advanced than getting a headlock.
Yeah, a little bit. Matt says, I'd like to ask Arn, what it was like to mix production crews with the Muppets when Kermit the Frog guest hosted Raw. A lot of us probably missed that, but yes, in the era of celebrity guest hosts for Raw, Kermit the Frog got the nod once. What do you remember?
No offense to Kermit, but I can guarantee you I was probably taking a dump when that segment went on the air. Just saying.
But no offense.
No offense. It happens.
Harold of Galactus says, any good stories from Dayton, Ohio, specifically Hera Arena? This comes up because just recently they took that arena down, sadly.
I know that, I don't know why, but we always ran that town in the winter. And it was one of those towns that had a very small airport and very few flights. That may not mean anything to the average Joe sitting home listening to this, or the gentleman that asked the question, but it just seems to snow a lot there. And we always ran it in the winter because the houses were good, because nothing else was going on. When there's snow on the ground, people will come to a wrestling match as long as the roads aren't closed or it's ice or foggy. But if it's just snow, we usually have a good house. And the problem is you wake up the next morning, the airline is not as agreeable. And if you missed a flight out of Dayton, sometimes it would be 4 or 5 hours before you would be another one. Very limited flights. So it was a difficult place to fly in and out of. And that's one of the things that I remember. The weather was bad. The house was good, but you may be struggling on getting home the next day. And when you only have a couple of days a week, sometimes, a day and a half at home, those 4 or 5 hours are very valuable.
Let me ask, did you hear from Dave Pinzer?
Because I did, about the shortcake story.
It blew up online. Tell us what you heard from Mr. Pinzer about the shortcake. He
was just happy to get some press, I think. He got hot as hell and then waited till he calmed down to send me a text, but brought up some old memories. I used to travel with Pee Wee and Pinzer quite a bit. And, we're still friends. We were good friends at one time. And that's a classic story. You should have heard from, I would think, or somebody should have heard from the people of Dothan on how renowned that strawberry cheesecake is. Did you get a big response?
Oh, yeah, I did. I heard all about it, and I will make it happen. Pinzer even wrote on Twitter, their strawberry shortcake was so good, I would have paid the $20 for a piece, but not for Pee Wee to eat mine. Welcome to the wrestling business. And Adam B says, I was just listening to that story for the 4th time today when I came across this tweet. People think that's one of the funniest stories we've ever told on the show. And Dave Pinzer says, telling old road stories is what Arn does best. You got any other traveling stories with Pee Wee or Pinzer you can share with us?
God, it was just, us goofing on each other all the time. I'll give you a really insane road story. Doesn't involve these two. I hope that's okay. It involves Tony Gillum, who was a ring announcer, and Bobby Eaton.
Okay.
So Gillum would have been, I think, I'm not sure if it was before Penzer or after. Not sure. But that was the makeup. Now it's Bobby Eaton and myself. We've got a minivan sitting in the back. It's Tony Gillum. Now we're going on Highway 70 from Kansas City to someplace, whatever the town was, and it is pouring rain. Now, this is in the afternoon. We had just got done eating lunch, and it was going to be one of those deals where we went to, I think we might have went to a buffet or something and really overdid it. And so Bobby and I used to have this little game we would play. It's called burp and blow. I would burp, blow on him. He would sell the piss out of it. He would sneak up on me, burp, blow it in my face. Very childish, very immature.
But I like that.
Yeah, grown-ass men.
Yeah.
Supposed to be badasses playing burp and blow. So we're going down the road about 70 miles an hour, and it's raining like hell. And I caught Bobby not paying attention. I leaned over and burped and blew in his face. Just so happened we had loaded up on onions and garlic that day. And buddy, anybody who knows Bobby knows he has a weak stomach. I mean weak, and he will gag like you think he's been stabbed with a spear or a sword. So I burped and blew on him, and he whipped around and got a whiff of that and puked all over my chest. I mean, it was right on my chest. And man, I pulled over and he hit it again. And now he puked in my lap. I'm pulling off the road. There's cars squealing all around us. Pull off the side, opened the door. I went to pull that shirt off. And as I pulled it over my head, I got another whiff of his puke. And now I puked all over the windshield. That set him off. Now he's puking in the floorboard. He's puking on the window beside him. He opens the door, falls out the right side. I'm on the left side. Now I got puke in my lap, which was on the shirt, the front of my shirt, right below my chin. I threw it off. I pulled my Zubaz off. I'm naked on the side of Interstate 70, puking my guts out the door. End of story.
Burp and blow.
Burp and blow can lead to bad things.
Friends don't let friends burp and blow.
Can you imagine some of those farmers and normal blue-collar people in Kansas City riding down the road and they look over and see the van with both doors open in the pouring rain and two guys? Hey, that looked like Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson. And Arn Anderson was naked, leaning out of a van, puking our guts up. That had to be that had to make some people think, man, I'm having an acid flashback or something. I can't have seen what I just saw.
Just another day in the wrestling business.
Another road story.
Bart wants to know, Lex Luger gets a bad rap for his in-ring work. What was it like wrestling him in 86 compared to 97 or even 1990 in the middle? Talk to us about the evolution of Lex Luger, the in-ring performer.
Well, Lex, he started out, he was green like everybody. He was protected when he was with us. We turned him babyface. He was protected again because he was working with us and we were teaching him and leading him through everything. And, Lex got to a point to where, he was never going to be a great worker because everybody can't be a great worker. If they would or they could, they would be. Everybody cannot just become a great worker. But he was good enough that you could, along with his look and his body and all that, if you were experienced heel, you could get through a match with him. Lex was not reckless or anything like that. He just got to a plateau in the business where he was as good as he was going to get, and he was as good as the guy he was working with. If you chose to feature the things he could do, I mean, he could press slam you, he could do a lot of things, power slam, clothesline you, a few standard things. He was no Ricky Steamboat or Barry Windham or Bobby Eaton or Ricky Morton, but he looked like $1 trillion, and that was what he brought to the table.
Let's do another one here. This is from the man of the 90s. He wants to know, is there a habit you picked up in your career that's been tough to break?
God, I don't know. Well, yes. Since we were always, for the last 38 years since I've been in the business, basically, if you're in the wrestling business, you work second shift and about half a third shift, to put it in layman's terms. From the moment you go to the gym that day, come home, you're on the clock. Then you drive to the town, you're on the clock. Then you wrestle, you're on the clock. Then you drive either back home or you go to the next town. And you're looking at, 12, 14-hour days. Fact is, you're always awake 2 or 3 in the morning, no matter what, somewhere in that time frame. And being awake from, say, noon that day till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, you get your clock set to being awake at those hours. So I'm home, I'll start watching the news at 11 o'clock, go to sleep. I wake up like clockwork, 2 o'clock, and I'll be up to 4:30. It's hard to get a good night's rest when you're just being woke up by your own internal clock. Right. I haven't been able to shake it. It happens every single night, and I'll wake up a couple times during the night because of old injuries on my arm and hand being asleep, or my neck hurting, or my low back, trying to go out on me. But that wakes me up different times during the night as well. But that somewhere in that 1:30 to 3:30 range, I pop open because I'm supposed to be awake, finishing a trip or whatever the case may be in my internal clock.
KC says, can you ask Arn what his opinion is of Dave Meltzer? We know JR sometimes has a mixed reaction, but Eric Bischoff and Bruce Pritchard wouldn't pee on him if he was on fire. Has Arn ever had an issue with something Dave wrote, or has he ever had a chance to meet or confront Dave? I mean, you and I've never had any sort of crosswords about Meltzer that I remember.
No, I've never met Dave, I don't think. I've seen him places. We've passed in hallways, probably nodded at him a few times. Everybody that wants to or can or has the aptitude or has the way in the door has a right in this country. If they want to get involved in the wrestling business, that's their right. And everybody has a right to an opinion. And, the fact that he critiques our business is his option. Everybody critiques everything. Everybody's a half-assed politician. Everybody's a booker. You can look at a TV show and go, well, damn, that was terrible. I'd have ended that differently or whatever. Anything you want to have an opinion about in this country, you can. And the fact that Dave makes a living being involved in the wrestling business, critiquing it and all that, means that over the years, he's learned the business. And
right.
he knows a lot of times exactly what he's talking about. And I agree with him a lot of times. Sometimes I don't, but I see things from a different slant than most people because I've been in every division other than operating a camera or setting up the ring. There ain't much I've missed in this business. So I look at everything from a well-rounded perspective, I think. And some things that you wouldn't think, that's the reason we did it, and we don't put it out there, it would make all the difference in the world in the way you view it. But, Dave's been around a long time. He's a part of the business. A lot of people, respect his, opinion, as do I. Doesn't mean I agree with it all the time. I don't agree with anybody all the time. And mostly I just keep my mouth shut when I don't agree. But no, never cross word.
Dustin King wants to know, I'm currently listening to Arn number 3, My Spot Again. I just finished the surgery recap section of the show. The pain you described is unbelievable. I'm a grown man and my eyes teared up. Did you ever reconnect with the male nurse that you credit with saving your life?
I did not. I wished I could. No, it's like I was able to thank him on my last day there. He actually came down and I want to say he's the guy that wheeled me out of the hospital and shook his hand, hugged his neck, and just let him know, you have no idea what you've done for me. And I'll never forget it, but I did not get it back in touch with him. And, it's like life moves on, and I'm sorry I hadn't. If he's out there and he knows who he is, take a bow, man, because you worked some magic on me. I thought I was going to have to end up doing something I really didn't want to do or never dreamed I would. And you're the thing that stepped in and changed my thinking after my wife woke me up and said, hey, cut the bullshit. You got a wife and kids. Sit up in the bed and get your ass up walking. That started me getting well.
Right.
And then you came in and you gave me the proper medication, and it's what they're there for. And that's what he said to me. So many people abuse drugs and abuse medication, and pills have killed a lot of people that should still be with us. But pain pills and pain medication is there to help you. That's what it's there for when you need it.
Right.
And thank God I didn't have a big tolerance to it, so that when he gave me the right combination, it worked. And that's what it's there for. So God bless that guy, whoever he is.
Over the years, when you did have in-ring injuries, but you were trying to power through, did you have a go-to pain reliever or source for relief? Some guys prefer this or that. Did you have a favorite to help make it more passable?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say I did. I broke my neck 3 different times, and I tore my groin one time, and like a Lorset was one of the things that I found that didn't tear my stomach up so bad.
Right.
The one thing about pain pills is, they help for a short time and to get you over the hump, but they constipate you. And when you got a bad neck, only a person with a really bad neck can explain this to you. But when you're on the toilet and you're constipated and you're trying to use the bathroom and you've got a bad neck injury and you're straining, man, it's like somebody stabbing you in the neck.
Right.
Because it's all local. I'm not trying to be funny or anything else. Ask Matt Coon.
Right.
Friend of ours, he just had the surgery, and he sent me a message, and I sent one back to him, and I hope it helped. But it's, pain medication, is meant to help you for a period. And I took those blue Lorsets, for a couple of, up to a month, of the recovery time it took me. But, you get so constipated, you're tired of not being able to use the bathroom, and then they're not as effective as what they should be. So you just wean yourself off of them, and you just tough it out every day.
It's just hard to imagine all the injuries that you pile up over the years that you don't have to find something. And I'm glad you did. Dismal Abysmal says, forgive me if this sounds woefully ignorant, but Cornette mentions how boys would speak freely or have clandestine meetings in the showers after matches. After the Brody incident in Puerto Rico, do you remember any of the boys ever being reluctant to meet in the showers?
I don't think, that was like an old timer thing. I don't think that happened very often. it was very seldom would guys go in the shower to discuss business or a match or anything. They'd probably, just do it in the locker room or maybe out in the hallway or, even go into the arena if it was empty. Very seldom would guys go into the shower. I never saw that situation of guys going over stuff in the shower area. Number one, it echoes, which means everybody in the locker room can hear what you're talking about.
Right.
Which is, people just don't think about that. But when we're going over a match or something, or going over whatever, a finish or whatever the deal is, you get wound up in that moment and you start dropping F-bombs and you get wound up. You're talking and boom, boom, then this and boom, 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 that. And it gets loud and it gets emotional. It's like you go to that place in your mind and you're picturing it. And when you talk about it, it's like you're doing it.
Right.
And, I would think with the echoing that goes on in most shower areas, that would be something like the guys would all look around and go, shit, what the hell's going on in there? It'd just be an annoyance, if nothing else.
Here's one, also from Dismal Abysmal. You mentioned having backstage discussions with and running ideas by Vince McMahon. But who or which company's regime was easiest to get your ideas across or change a promoter's mind on what they already had planned? Was it Bill Watts in Mid-South, Dusty Rhodes or Jim Crockett and Jim Crockett, Jim Hurd or Eric Bischoff in WCW? What would you think?
Well, the only one I actually approached was Vince. Everybody else, I just did whatever was asked.
Right.
Whatever you want, tell me what you want. Piece of cake. Dusty was piece of cake. The night that I did my retirement speech, I went to Eric. I said, I have something in my head. He said, take all the time you need. And it worked out to be pretty good. But he gave me carte blanche on that. Bill Watts, I never had a conversation with him. He never even spoke to me until I found out that night at TV when Dog said, Bill, Lundy looks just like Ole. Send him to Atlanta and make him an Anderson. Bill looked and said, Jay, well, that's a great idea. You're right. I'll call him. Lundy, I'll let you know something next TV. That's the only conversation I ever had with Bill Watts in 5 months. So I hope that's the answer, but
let's do another one here with Dustin King. Many consider the 93 version of the Four Horsemen to be the worst incarnation and a bit of a fantasy booking based off the roster in May of 93. Who would you have chosen to fill the 2 remaining slots? And he lists all the talent here. I guess they're on solely.org. But you know who the other 2 members were. Who could it have been? Obviously, you and Rick. Some other names could have been Bobby Eaton, Sting, Hayes, Simmons, Pillman, Zink, Brad Armstrong, Barry Windham, Vader, Dustin Rhodes, Johnny B. Bad, Steve Austin, Cactus Jack, Rick Rude, Ricky Steamboat, DDP, Bagwell, Eric Watts, Johnny Gunn, Tex Slazenger, Shanghai Pierce, Paul Orndorff, Too Cold, Regal, Chris Benoit, Max Payne, Rage, Kent Cole, Keith Cole, Davey Boy Smith, Sid Vicious, and Paul Roma.
So who were the guys that were in place?
Well, he's asking if you just hit the reset button in 93 and it's you and Rick, who would the other 2 be? We know Roma wound up being one of them. Of course, most people would have liked to have seen it be Tully, but that didn't happen. But I got to tell you, until I just read this question, I never thought about Paul Orndorff as a Horseman, but that could have worked.
Yeah.
Steve Austin could have worked. That would have been badass. And I know you probably would have liked to see Brad Armstrong or Bobby Eaton. There's a lot of talented dudes in there. Did any of those names jump out as potential Horseman material?
If we would have done it in 93 and where everybody was in their career at that time, I would say Ted DiBiase and Kurt Hennig.
They were not yet in WCW though. Out of the roster that was there.
Oh, we're going by just who was there.
Yeah.
So this is not a true wish list. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
apologize.
Wish list for the WCW roster at the time. So of the folks under contract, who could we have pulled?
I would have. Hey, I wanted Benoit for a long time.
So he's on there. So who's number 4?
Damn, I like you said Paul Orndorff.
That's kind of good, isn't it?
Boy, that caught me. I like it. He's vicious. He was a great baby face, but man, he was a kick-ass heel too. Paul was a great performer across the board. He could do it all.
If Dusty was still working, you got to think Dustin Rhodes turning on his dad could have been a hell of a story. And just kick that thing off again.
That's if you would have had the baby faces to line up against us.
Right.
And go with it all the way. You know what I mean? The difference in WCW, it's my opinion, and Jim Crockett Promotions is with Jim Crockett, you had a set number of guys on the crew. Say it was 20, 25 guys total on the crew. Angles were usually 6 months. You would take months to build them. And then when you popped that angle, you went to every one of your markets with it. And you made sure the TVs stayed current. You did a lot of things, and you would get 6 months out of an angle. Everything was too short-sighted. In 6 months with WCW, hell, you may run through 3 bookers.
Right.
And 3 executives who were the boss. So each time a guy would come in, the direction would change and the faces and names would have changed. So I don't think in WCW, I never felt like when Tully didn't make it, I don't think the company ever truly committed to the Horsemen being what they were. And I get it. Some things you can't rehash. I think Rick and I and Tully could have added one guy and we could have got back hot if they would have stuck with it. We could have also, I always felt after that retirement and they did the parody, if you would have left Kurt with the Horsemen and featured it, you could have had a hell of a run with the NWO and the Horsemen then, right there.
Can you imagine in 93 if Tully did come back? Let's let Rick go chase the world title. He can, feud with Barry Windham, the old Horseman for the NWA title. You and Tully just pick up where you left off. Y'all are going to be tag champs, and then bring in Orndorff and let him chase the TV title because he was going to be TV champ anyway. But dude, Orndorff and Tully with y'all, golly, that's a bunch of badass shit talking heels. I love it.
Yeah, it would have worked. If the company would have committed to it, yes, would have worked.
4 Horsemen for Life, nice handle, wants to know, hey, Arn, I watched a podcast with Black Bart. He's hilarious without trying to be. Please tell me you have a funny Black Bart story.
Yes.
Are you trying to think of one you can tell?
Oh, I loved Bart. Black Bart. I mean, he was the guy in the locker room that, he was always in a good mood. He was always kidding. And, he was a big guy too, and he worked hard. He was a good employee, always on time, all those things. J.J. Dillon, this was when he was managing Barbarian. Now, do you remember that? It goes all the way back to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Barb was working with Black Bart. And Bart went to the ring. Hold on, let me get this correct. I don't think he wasn't working with Barbarian. That was a mistake. I don't think that Paul Jones was managing Barbarian at that time. I had that wrong. JJ was just in the locker room, and I forget what he was doing, who he was managing. But anyway, Bart went to the ring, had the match. Now, he had a very expensive Stetson cowboy hat that he wore to the ring.
Okay.
They brought it all back, all of his gear, his big jacket and the duster, I believe they're called, and had that hat. And JJ took that brand new Stetson and popped it inside out. It's in the locker room. So when Bart came back, he looked at his brand new cowboy hat and it was inside out. And boy, he started raising holy hell. Now, at this time, Barbarian was as big as he had been. Okay. He was jacked. He didn't say very much. He was strong as hell, and he's an island boy. So Bart goes, okay, I want to know which one of you cocksuckers have fucked with my goddamn brand new Stetson. That some bitch was $175. And he looks around the room, and JJ is giving towards Barb. Barb's not paying attention. So now, Bart sells it. He thinks JJ's telling him the truth, but JJ is the one that did it. He goes over and he starts cussing out the Barbarian. Like, what do you want to do that to my hat for, you cocksucker? What I would do you? And he's cutting this promo. And Barb is going, brother, what you talking about? I don't do it. I don't know who did it. I didn't do it. Now he's begging off this monster, and Bart is raising holy hell. That happened 2 nights in a row. Same promo, same setup. Barb never got out of his seat, but got cussed out 2 nights in a row. And I don't think Bart ever found out, probably until this moment, who actually popped his hat inside out. Barbarian, to this day, does not know why he got cussed out 2 days in a row. Because with that dip in cocksucker, you don't know what the hell Bart's saying. I never did. He'd have his glasses on. He'd be looking out of the top of those glasses. But Bart was a great guy. I traveled with him some. It was an experience.
Let me just say, you've got to get to adfreeshows.com. Not only do you get these shows early, but you get to see video while we're recording, and seeing Arn's face during that is worth the price of admission. 4 Horsemen for Life says, hey, Arn, whatever happened to the patented one arm behind the back body slam that the Andersons used? I don't remember seeing that in the last few years.
The last few years of me working.
I mean, even now, you don't see many guys do it now.
No, because it was passed down to me from Gene and Ole. And it had a meaning because, they would have guys submit. That was, a lot of the times, Ole would jump off that second turnbuckle. Gene would have a guy stretched out and drive that knee into his shoulder, put on an arm bar, make the guy quit. That was handed down to me, and I utilized it. It wasn't something that was, the business has evolved, and it was evolving to, slamming a guy on the arm, which I thought looked vicious because you trapped it and his own body weight came down on it. I thought was just a good softening up move.
Right.
It wasn't a kill shot, and everybody was, this was an era when guys were doing stuff off the top and clotheslining your head off and power slamming and you name it, power bombing. It wasn't that appealing, I would think, to most guys, but I had a history with it. I worked an arm a lot. I worked a body part a lot, but when I worked an arm, that was one of the things I would do to help soften it up, and people would remember Ole and Gene doing it. So it made sense. I don't know how much sense it would make for somebody else to do it.
I've always wondered, and boy, I know I'm earning myself a spine buster when I see you for asking this. But back in the day in your promos, you used to say that you were brought up the old way. You take a body part, you render it useless, blah, blah, blah. And the Andersons always worked on the arm, and then your finish is a spine buster. Did you ever consider an arm submission? You just mentioned a minute ago that you would, your quote unquote family members would use an arm bar as a submission hold. Did you ever consider an arm submission or something like that?
Until I settled on the Gourd Buster and the Spine Buster, which I created both of, by the way. Until I settled on those, I did have a few guys when I first came to Crockett, was on Atlanta TV. I did have a few guys submit the arm. My first TV with Crockett, which was syndicated, I broke a guy's arm. If you go back to that very first TV, which will be around March the 5th or something, 1985, my very first television, they had me go out with a kid, and I stayed on the arm and broke the arm, and down came Manny Fernandez and stuck his nose in it. And I left him laying, and that had he and I, off running with an angle. My very first TV broke a guy's arm, and a lot of people don't remember that, but it's a pretty good launching pad dropping Manny behind it, because him and Dusty were the world tag team champions at that time, I believe.
So I guess my question is, when you adjust to the Spine Buster or the Gourd Buster, did you consider adjusting the rest of your offense to not just be arm focused?
And I did. I thought I did anyway. I would, if I decided I was going to work on a guy's leg, I stayed on the leg. If it was a back, I tried to stay on the back. But I did believe you could wear a guy down, wear his arm down to where he had problems fighting back.
Yes.
Which left him susceptible to a power move.
Yes.
Because he couldn't protect himself like he could if he had both arms. So weakening that arm had more strategy in it than just getting a guy's arm where he couldn't use it and then making him submit. It was basically to get him at a disadvantage where I could stick him with a power move, was the psychology.
One last question, and this is a non-wrestling question. We get a lot of these, and it's fun to do, and we'll go out with this one. Ben wants to know, what are Arn's top 5 favorite movies, and what genre of film does he generally enjoy the most?
5 top movies. Top Gun, I enjoyed. Deer Hunter, Robert De Niro.
Wow.
Yeah. McClintock, John Wayne.
I can see that.
Funny as hell. That's 3, right?
That's 3. We got 2 left.
I don't think I enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I know I didn't enjoy it, but how about this? It had a huge impact on me. Can we count that?
Yes.
When I was 15, I was in Washington State. I drove out there actually from Rome, Georgia. He was in the military and he had 30 days off and he was going to spend it in Tacoma, Washington. So I rode out there with him and I was going to ride back with him. And I spent the summer, 1 month of that summer with him out there. And it's when the Exorcist debuted.
I knew you were going to say that. My mom tells me this story all the time. To this day, it's the scariest movie she's ever seen in her life. It was way ahead of its time. I assume it made a profound impact on a 15-year-old Marty Lundy too.
Well, especially because it was just, everybody was protesting it.
Right.
Nobody was going in this movie. He and I went, and we're the only ones in there.
Wow.
And it was an old school with the big, high, like velvet curtains everywhere. I mean, it was like just a creepy overall movie theater. It messed with me so bad that when we went back, we were staying with his parents, his mom and dad, and his dad was in the military too. It messed with me so bad that I sat up on the dryer all night long because I could have the light on in the room. It messed me up, buddy. You just didn't see stuff like that in movies back then.
No kidding.
And if you haven't seen it, don't, because it is brutal.
One last one.
Okay, let me think about it. That's a place of prominence. Let me think about that for a
Hey,
second.
while you're thinking, have you ever watched The Exorcist with your kids?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think they've seen it. Barrett may have seen it, but I know Aaron hasn't seen it, and I know Brock hasn't, and he has no intentions of seeing it. And I don't want to see it ever again. I saw it that one time. That's it. When that head turned around on her shoulders, I flipped. I came out of my chair, brother. Yes, I did. Okay, last one. I know I'm going to skip over something that I went, damn, I should have said that. Let me think for just a second. Maybe, how about Platoon?
Okay.
I think it had probably a close as you can get to a story being told in a real setting, and all the gore and all the stuff that those guys went through. And, unbelievable. It's probably as realistic as anything, maybe, of a war movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched it several times, and it's just the little details, that go in it. And I'm sure there's a lot of other movies that I haven't, just aren't on the tip of my tongue. But those 5 I liked a lot.
Well, something you didn't like a lot. Uncensored 96. That's our topic next week. Arn, are you excited about this?
Uncensored 96.
Yeah, that's where I had you and 90 other heels against Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in a triple cage.
Oh, that show sucked. Are we actually going to watch that?
Well, I'm not going to make you. Yeah, you have to watch it ahead of time so you'll be fresh.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to watch it.
Well, it's got the Loch Ness on it. Giant haystacks. He's wrestling a giant. Oh, they got Colonel Robert Parker wrestling Medusa. You don't love this show?
He was great big, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a big fella.
Colonel Parker
wrestled Medusa on the show.
I love Colonel Parker. He's always entertaining, but I think he was part of this stinker too.
Dude, there's so much to unpack. It's Uncensored 96. That's our topic next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another hashtag Ask Arn Anything. If you want to participate in the show, it's easy. Just follow us on Twitter at the Arn Pod, or I'm sorry, at the Arn Show. I got you confused with Kurt Angle. Hey,
I got to cut you off.
Okay, please do.
Movie.
Yeah, you said 5.
Wait a minute. Josie Wales.
Oh, you forgot one. I like it.
Josie Wales. Do you like Josie Wales? Clint Eastwood?
Can I be honest? I've never seen it.
Watch it. And the next time we talk, I want an update. Do you like Clint Eastwood?
Yeah.
You'll love Josie Wales.
What year did that even come out? 76. Yeah, I'm -5. I never saw that one.
Awesome.
Oh, wait.
If you like Clint Eastwood.
No, I have seen this. My dad made me watch this. I like that one. That was a good one.
Your dad likes it?
Oh, my dad's a Western nut, dude.
My man, I knew I liked your dad.
I grew up having to watch The Rifleman. I mean, until I was like 12, like every day of my life, it was The Rifleman.
How about The Big Valley?
I saw that too. I know every episode of Bonanza, forwards and backwards.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All of it.
Awesome, Little Joe. You guys were like if the Bonanza crew were going to be the 4 Horsemen, hey, they already had a Mongo too. Who would you have been?
Oh, I'd have to be Hoss. See, that's just you. That's just you blistered me again. You knew the answer.
I love it.
I couldn't say I would be the young, tanned Little Joe. Nobody's going to buy that shit.
Who would that be?
Well, that'd be your spot, I would imagine, right?
Oh, no, I'm saying I wasn't in the Horsemen. Although JJ did sign a picture to me once and said, I consider you an honorary horseman.
And I wasn't in Bonanza either, but that's not the question.
Well, the question was, if the Horsemen and Bonanza were to switch places, which one would you be? And you went Hoss. I guess Flair's Little Joe?
I guess, yes.
and there already is a Mongo. Where would that leave?
Wait a minute. Flair might have been the dad.
Okay.
The dad was pretty, he had that blonde hair slicked back. He was tanned and shit. He was the boss. He had his shit together. Right?
I guess Hiro Matsuda's Hop Sing.
You tell him.
I don't need a broken leg. Fuck that.
Yeah. How about doing it? Get him in the ring and say, Hiro, you are Hop Sing with wear the ponytail. And then he'd get you in a knee bar and blow your knee out, and that'd be it.
Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Check us out at the Arn Show. I almost said the Angle Pod right there. Have you heard the Angle Pod yet? Have you listened to any Kurt shows yet?
I am so looking forward to Kurt, and he's settling in well, right, everybody? He's special, guys. Let me just say this. Kurt Angle is a Olympic gold medalist heavyweight wrestling champion. That makes him special. And the stories he has to tell, being a talent from the era that he came from, it's all going to be recent, right up to now. He just hasn't been gone from the company long. And God, I can only imagine the stories that he has to tell from the locker room and stuff that I wouldn't be privy to. Conrad wouldn't be privy to. This guy's going to have a whole different slant on everything. And what a performer. He figured our business out. And man, he really got over. And he's something special. When you're an Olympic gold medalist, you're something special. So it's going to be incredible listening. I can't wait.
The topics out there already are WrestleMania 19, from the Olympics to pro wrestling, WrestleMania retirement, WrestleMania 21 against Shawn. And this week we dropped No Way Out 2001, the story of his match with The Rock for the world title. But coming up in 2 weeks, we've got Kurt's rookie year. And later this year, I can't believe this is a thing, we're going to talk about Foxcatcher. Do you know that whole story about the murder and John DuPont and all that?
Yeah, that DuPont was a nutcase.
It's going to be a hell of a story, man. It's the Kurt Angle Show. You don't want to miss it. It airs Sunday, every Sunday morning, 6 a.m. here on Westwood One, anywhere you enjoy podcasts. Totally free. But if you want to see video of the show and get them early and ad-free, you can do so over at adfreeshows.com. Until next week, he is at the Arn Show. I am Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. Don't forget to watch AEW this weekend. Arn and I will be. We'll see you soon, right here on Arn.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.